Hello, everybody, and welcome to the HTML All the Things podcast, episode number 56, The Traveling Developer. I'm your host, Matt Lawrence, and I'm joined again by my co-host, Mike Coran. Now, before I continue on with this introduction, Mike and I have been having a bit of a feud in the office here, and I think this episode should not be called The Traveling Developer, but rather should be called The Sisterhood of the Traveling Developer Pants.
Ridiculous name I've ever heard.
To rank at SEO, it'd be.
Would you click on it? I would. That's what I want to know. Everyone in the audience, would you click on that name? I'm not even going to repeat it.
You're not going to repeat the sisterhood. Hear this, Google. The Sisterhood of the Traveling Developer Pants. But anyway. So, anyway, I can see Mike's rubbing his face now. So, I'm just going to keep on going with this. So, if you've been enjoying the podcast so far and want to support us, there are a couple ways you could do that. You could review us on Apple Podcasts or on the podcast platform that you're listening to this on. You can also check us out on Patreon. We only have 2 tiers right now, but that $3 tier will give you a shout out on the podcast, and we'll share a link to your website on our full show notes. And probably the most important one is just to share this with your friends, tell people that are interested in web development or other types of development that we have a podcast, and we also have a Discord server, so if that person would like to hang out, or if you'd like to come hang out, our Discord server launched probably about 2-3 months ago, and it's really been growing rather quickly now. A lot of people in there, lots of help, lots of conversations. It's now at the point where Mike and I don't have to converse to keep the conversation going, so it's definitely like a self-growing community, if that's the wrong way to say it. One might call it a sisterhood of the traveling developer pants.
One might not.
I'm going to change the name of our Discord server now.
To the Sisterhood of the Traveling Developer Community?
Developer Pants. It has to be the full thing. We need the SEO. We need to hit all those search terms. Because I'm sure that it's getting to the point now where they'll probably bring that movie back, which they actually might have already. I don't know. Maybe it'll be a Netflix original series or something. Who knows?
Was it a movie? I thought it was a book.
I thought it was a movie. Google what I just said, and I'm sure you'll find out whether it was a book or a movie, and then you can also listen to our podcast episode. Anyway, as we always do, our weekly pain point. Mike, take it away.
All right. Weekly pain point this week is I don't have a weekly pain point. I was on vacation the whole week, so I don't really have anything to complain about. It's kind of a complaint-free week. I was at a cottage in Minnesota, just paddleboarding, kayaking, jet skiing, stuff like that, eating a lot of food, having a lot of fun, so can't really complain about that. I was trying to think of what was I doing that really pissed me off, but that's just nitpicking, and I'm not about the nitpick. What about you, Matt?
So that sounds pretty fun, but my weekly pain point is a legitimate pain point, and that is these damn notifications. Now, I'm talking about specifically on my Samsung Galaxy S8 Plus. So basically what I was having trouble with was I like to receive phone calls via the ringer. I like the phone to ring, but I do not want to receive dings and little dings and whatever else comes up whenever I get an SMS, an email, whatever. And so I went in there and I was messing around with the settings, and I turned the sound profile to loud. I then turned off sound for notifications, which then killed off a lot of the notification noises for things like SMS, WhatsApp, Messenger, whatever. Now, occasionally the phone does go, and I don't know what that means. I'm not sure what app that is. I couldn't tell you. However, what I've found is, and I'm not sure exactly what's going on, so I'm assuming that there's an app, and it's specifically the BlackBerry Hub, that is just ignoring the fact that I said, please do not notify me. And so it still goes, dring, every time I get an email, which is the normal tone. But I don't want to have to go into the master settings and then also go into the app settings. So that's a pain in the ass. But there's also something else that's weird. There's a device permission thing that installed itself on this phone a while ago. Because I don't use the Samsung Messages app, because mine was broken. Every time I tried to search for a contact, it wouldn't do it. So I basically just said, the heck with this. I went over to Google Messages because I also wanted the desktop client thing, which is a whole other story in and of itself. But anyway, now whenever I text, and I just figured out how to stop this today, so it's a post pain point. It used to tell me, oh, the Messages app, it used to send me a notification, and the Messages app used the SMS permission. You don't frickin' say. It's the Messages app. What type of app? What the heck's going on here? But anyway, that's my weekly pain point. Android needs to not have so many layers, and they need to figure their stuff out and get it done. But anyway, we're going to pass it on to Mike, because he's going to be talking about his travel tips for his traveling pants for developers. So, Mike, take it away.
All right, so traveling tips. So one thing that I did this past week, and like I said, I went on vacation, but even when I go on vacation, because we have a small business and we have a lot of clients, no matter what, you kind of have to pack to travel and work. I don't remember the last time I went on a vacation where I didn't have to at least do some kind of work. So I'm pretty accustomed to it, and I'm actually fairly okay with it. It makes it easier to come back the next week, because if I was to just like completely disconnect, which is what a lot of people do, and some people really like that, I feel like I would have extreme anxiety coming back on the Monday, because who knows what would have happened. Like, some people will literally like turn off their email syncing, their notifications, everything. Like, they won't even check their emails for an entire week. That would be worst case scenario for me if I did that. I don't know if that's kind of like just my preference, or maybe I'm just crazy. I don't know. But for me, when I travel, even if it's for vacation, I usually do some work, just maintenance stuff, like making sure I update databases, making sure I like answer emails, stuff like that. It doesn't take very long. Usually it's like sitting on the beach or something and answering some emails. I don't mind doing that. I think that's kind of cool, actually. So with that, it kind of sparked a few different points that I have, and I think might help everyone out there. And Matt, let me know if you have any questions along the way as well, because I know you don't do too much traveling, especially traveling and working. So I'm sure that your questions will be really relevant to people that are in the kind of the similar situation, and maybe they want to start. So definitely interrupt me whenever you can, or whenever you see fit as I'm going through this. So my first point here is travel as light as possible. And I say this when I know, like, obviously when you travel, you still have to pack as much as you need. But I've noticed from just witnessing a lot of friends pack and a lot of family pack, that they pack too much. And I'm referring to both like clothes and stuff, and technology and stuff like that. Stuff that they need, they think they need for their current work, or they think they need for whatever's going to happen in the future. Like, if you're going away for a week, and you know what's going to happen, like, the type of stuff that you're going to be asked to do, that's what you should be packing. You shouldn't be packing to just in case have to, render a massive database of numbers, like a million numbers that you've pretty much never done before, but maybe someone could ask you for. You're not packing to, back up an entire server onto your computer, stuff like that. Like, so if you know that you're just going to be doing some maintenance work, make sure to pack all you would need just for that maintenance work. And that's it. If anything goes wrong, or if anything has happened, you'll adapt to the situation. But what I'm saying is that there's no point in making your like backpack super heavy for no reason and putting strain on your back. There's no point in risking a bunch of equipment that you're going to be carrying, because whenever you're traveling, it's always a risk for everything that you carry, for either getting stolen or damaged, or just wear and tear in general. So it's important to kind of only take what you need. So for me, one big thing that I kind of learned as I went is I definitely only take one laptop. So before, when I had to do both Mac and Windows work, I was, I'm not a huge fan of MacBooks, but I would have to take both laptops, because my main laptop was a Windows machine and my side laptop was a MacBook, just so I can get the iOS deployments done and test on Safari and stuff like that. And that was a terrible idea. I think I only did that once. And I was actually traveling from Canada to Russia, which is sometimes a 24-hour travel. And my back fell apart. It was a disaster. It was so heavy. And every time you go to security, and I had to pass through security like 3 times on my way there, you have to take out both laptops, put them in their compartments, put them all back. It's just a huge pain. And I definitely do not recommend to do that. So get the laptop that works for you. So not everyone will need a MacBook, obviously. Not everyone will need just a Windows machine. Maybe you'll need a MacBook. So depending on what you do, you could get away with either one, but just choose one. If you want something that can handle everything, MacBook is the only one that can do that, unfortunately. There's not much you can do about that. Like, you have to go MacBook so that you can actually do Safari testing. And on MacBook, you can do Chrome and Firefox testing and stuff like that. And you can also do a boot camp to test all the Windows stuff. It's just that you have more options when you have a MacBook, unfortunately. Like there's no other way to put it. So carry one laptop. Make sure it's not too heavy. You don't need something that's super, super powerful if you're a web developer. If you're a data analyst or something like that, don't worry about that. You get yourself like a nice beefy laptop and carry that. But if you're a web developer, you don't need a massive, like, huge GPU in there. You don't need a super beefy processor. We can actually code on very, very lightweight devices. It's not a very CPU or graphic intensive job, which is a great thing for us. That means that we can travel light and we can go anywhere we want. One thing I do recommend, and this is kind of another preference thing, is having a bigger screen. And I know that goes against a little bit as travel as light as possible. But for me, like I have, it's still a thin laptop, the MacBook Pro that I have. So I'm willing to sacrifice a little bit of weight to get more screen real estate, because going from 3 monitors at home and as my main work setup, to 1 monitor, and then having that monitor be a tiny 13-inch or 12-inch monitor, it's a really big drastic difference. So I kind of have a hard time adjusting to that. So that's why I kind of go with a bigger screen nowadays. The other thing that I do is I carry minimal amounts of cords. So I only carry the cords that I need, maybe one backup of something that's really important. So for most things now can charge by USB-C. So USB-C is the most important one. I usually carry maybe 2 of those, one like mini one just in case. But you can buy a cord wherever you go. So if anything happens, don't worry about it. You can always buy a cord. They're not that expensive. So there's no point in carrying like 5 or 6 different cords just in case one breaks, or if you want to charge a million things at once. Like it's not necessary. You'll find out when you get to a hotel room, you don't want to lay out all your stuff to charge anyway. You'll be charging stuff like periodically as you need it. That's how I do it. Like, so I'll charge my phone during the day. Usually I won't even charge it at night. I'll charge my laptop overnight or something like that. So I have a different schedule when I'm traveling than when I'm at home. And that I usually try to carry one cable. Nowadays, laptops can even charge with USB-C. So you can literally carry your laptop charger cable, and that's it, which is great.
One of the things I was actually going to interrupt you about was your comment about the larger screen. And the reason why what that made me think of was, yes, it goes against your idea to have something smaller, like to kind of make everything compact and be, more utilitarian. But at the same time, the first thing I thought of was, you kind of want to make sure that even though this is this is your work device, it's also your personal device when you're on the go. So if you're planning on watching movies or something while you're on the plane, if it's a really long flight, or if you're going to be, I don't know, in some sort of like cottage or something, and you're just going to watch movies at night, then you kind of need that extra screen. On top of that, if you're a big like photographer, make sure you have some sort of storage in that laptop. So you're not bringing another laptop or like another device to like back up your photos from your phone or from your camera. It's just, so like sometimes your one device gets larger, but it's because it's saving you from bringing an entirely secondary device.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's true. Like my laptop has 512 gigs of storage, and that's more than enough for all my needs. So I don't even bring a second hard drive anymore. I'll bring a USB stick just in case that I need to quickly transfer files here and there, but I use that very rarely. That can even go away at some point in the future. But yeah, that's definitely a good point. Larger screen is definitely huge for entertainment and media consumption and stuff like that. So it's one of those things that I think I've talked about before, and I've talked with other developers about it. I've noticed a few people recommend 13-inch MacBooks and 13-inch Windows like Surface devices. And I've just I've tried it, and it just isn't for me. I'm sure that many people can handle it, but I have had people come back to me and be like, yeah, it's a good call that you recommended a larger screen, because I can get more efficient work done. So to each their own. Definitely give both a shot if you're on the fence, and see what works for you. So the second thing here is keep your desktop environment synced with your mobile environment as much as possible. So this is kind of an ongoing thing, and it's not just when you're going to travel. In my opinion, this is something you should be doing anyway, and we've talked about this many times before. So use stuff like Git, cloud storage, FTP, stuff like that as much as possible, rather than using your local drive. And as you start using it more and more, and making sure you commit more often, and you push more often, and you pull more often, you'll notice yourself just get into that rhythm. And then even when you're like not planning to be away, and maybe you're away for the day, and you need to get something done and it's an emergency, you can hop on a different computer, your friend's computer, download all your dev tools real quick and still be able to solve anything, even when you haven't prepared for it. So it's it's an important thing to kind of keep up as a daily routine, but it's especially important, obviously, for when you're going to be traveling for a significant amount of time. So it's really easy to do as long as you kind of get into the habit of doing it, is what is my main point of this. Try to get into the habit as much as you can. And the big thing that kind of leads, the point that I have after this that leads to that point is, before you leave, try working on your mobile setup for a day to see if you have everything you need. So sometimes you'll if you haven't worked on your laptop in a couple months, first of all the updates won't be done. So you'll go to your hotel room, you'll open it up, and it'll be doing 50 million updates, and it'll be a bad experience because you're going to be waiting for a while for it to do something, and it'll keep telling you to restart. It's kind of a pain. I definitely recommend you a couple days before to fire up that laptop. Try to go downstairs, go to a coffee shop, go somewhere else, and try to work for a little bit without your main computer and see if everything is working fine as you would want it to work. Because when you're at home, it's a lot easier to work through these problems than when you're traveling and you have to either VPN into your main machine or try to get someone else to go and turn it on and get some files off for you, stuff like that. It's a lot easier when you're actually there. So that's another little pro tip there. Another one is prepare for bad internet connections. You're going to be traveling. You don't know how good the internet connection is, no matter how much you read on TripAdvisor or whatever. You just don't know, because it could go away. It could be spotty in the upstairs bedroom. It could be spotty in the office. It could be spotty wherever you're working. It could be a spotty connection. The good news is that web development actually doesn't need super fast speeds. We don't really work a lot remotely. Like, we can do a lot locally on our machines. We can do a lot of local developer testing on our machines. We can do a lot of we can do most of our work just completely on the machine. So it's still possible to work even with bad connections, as long as there is a connection. Like, you still need something, because you still need to be firing to a server. You still need to test your APIs and stuff like that. But that doesn't require much. And the other positive about that is you'll get to experience what it's like for a lot of the people in the world. When you're testing your sites and you're testing it on a bad connection, believe it or not, most of the people in the world are using connections that are even worse than that, or just like that. So you get to kind of optimize your code a little bit, optimize your everything that you're doing, and you get to have empathy for other people, and that will make you a better developer, and it'll make your sites a little bit more efficient, and it'll make it better for you. It'll make it better for you in the future when you're like coding up a site brand new. You'll think about these people being like, oh yeah, remember that time I was in that hotel room, terrible Wi-Fi. But I could load my page pretty quickly, so that was a good experience. So one thing I do to kind of alleviate that is I keep larger files, like stock images that I'm going to be using for different projects, icon packs, fonts, and sometimes even documentation. So if I'm going to be like working on a Vue.js thing, you can download their documentation and have it work offline for you, so you don't need to can even connect to their site. So that's kind of what I do, or whatever other library you choose, right? Like, all the different libraries out there have, maybe not all, but a lot of them have a way for you to download it locally. And then you can kind of still use it even when you have a bad connection. Another positive about that is if you're on a plane for a long time, you can fire it up, still have some documentation to refer to while you're working. So you're not kind of stuck out of being able to Google or figure out some stuff. Obviously you can't Google, but you can at least figure out some questions that you have, or what the API call is for a certain thing and stuff like that. Knowing what you need before you leave for travel will definitely help you narrow down what you need to store locally. So that's another one of those things for preparation's sake. So when you're preparing before you leave, you want to make sure to know what you're going to be doing while you're traveling. So if it's for a week, it's kind of an easy way to prepare, because you usually know what's coming in the week ahead. If it's a month-long travel, which I actually have coming up in a little bit, that's a little bit harder. So it's a little bit like you're gonna have to predict what you're gonna be doing, and you're gonna have to adapt with it as you can. So if there's certain things that you know you're going to be working on, make sure they're locally stored. Make sure that you have access to them even if there's no internet connection. And make sure if you do have an internet connection, or if it's a slow internet connection, you can still kind of sit there and grab it slowly so that you can continue working and stuff like that. So it's not going to time you out. Another thing that's really important when you're traveling is get a decent pair of headphones that can block out noise. These don't have to be expensive. They don't have to be those new Bose headphones that cost $500, or the Sennheisers or the Sonys. Like they're great headphones. Don't get me wrong. If you have the money and you have the resources to spend it, get those headphones. They're the Quiet Comforts. I can't remember what the Sonys are called, but just search Sony noise canceling headphones. They're amazing too. But I think even ones that just have an in-ear system that aren't like the Apple, just the standard Apple, earbuds or earpods, whatever you call them. Anything that has an in-ear in-canal system where you can put it in, that helps a lot with noise cancellation. Anything, you can get some cheaper ones. I think Bluetooth offers some cheaper active noise canceling headphones, so you can definitely try those out. I have a couple pairs. They've been pretty good. But lately, what I've been using is I think there's Xiaomi AirDots, and they're wireless, like similar to AirPods kind of earphones. So you put them in, but they're in ear, so they actually do cancel out some noise. And those have been great because it's just the convenience factor for me. Over ears are great, but I find on a plane, for me, over ears, when I try to kind of put my head down, they get in the way of my pillow and it kind of hurts my ears a little bit. So when I have something that's a little bit smaller and in ear, I can be more comfortable. But that's completely a preference thing. I've seen a lot of people on planes with over ears. If that's your preference, there's plenty of options for you. But try to get a decent pair. The other thing.
Oh, sorry.
Yep,
with that ahead. Being said, I was going to say is, since you are bringing those headphones along, always make sure you have actually some offline media as well downloaded, because otherwise you might not be able to. Maybe it's even because you're in a certain country, so you can't listen to your Spotify playlist or watch like that movie on Netflix or whatever. So make sure you have it downloaded to some degree. So for example, like I always have a season of a show that I'm okay rewatching a few times just to like prevent boredom, and then I always have Pulp Fiction on my phone because I'm a Pulp Fiction fanatic, but
because it's Pulp Fiction.
Because it's Pulp Fiction, yeah. So
yeah, that's a good point. Make sure before you go. I don't even have this on here, but I do this every time. Is I go through, download a bunch of podcasts. I download some Netflix stuff, like because you can use Netflix offline now, which is great for the plane. I download usually an ebook. I give myself quite a bit of variety because you get bored of one thing. So if you download like 15 episodes of a podcast, you're probably going to get bored of listening to that, or like listening to those episodes, even if they're different, obviously. You'll want to switch it up a little bit. Again, like Matt said, get some music on there to switch it up, because sometimes you're on a plane for 8 hours. Like that's a lot of time to eat up. So just make sure that you have a lot of different things that you can do in that time. 100%. Good call, Matt. So the next thing here is coffee shops are definitely your friend. So I've learned this. I've used this tip many times in all different places around the world. So they usually have good Wi-Fi and they usually have good seating. So they're comfortable for you and they allow you to do your job. You get a coffee, you just sit there and you work. And the good thing is that a lot of people that I know of will still go to coffee shops even when they're at home. As a change of pace and as a change of scenery, and they'll work there. So one thing it'll do is it'll kind of give you a better and more consistent routine. So even when you're traveling somewhere that you're not comfortable with and you're in a different environment, going to a coffee shop will put you back to like a more, an environment that you're more familiar with, and it'll make you a little bit more productive while you're there. And it'll kind of let you assimilate to the culture, assimilate to the surroundings a lot faster. Especially if you, like I said, if you've gone to coffee shops to work before locally, they kind of carry over across all the different countries, and especially Starbucks. I mean, Starbucks is the same in every country, and it's pretty much in every single country that you go to. So it's convenient to be able to go there, sit down, and use their facility to get some work done. And this is especially where those headphones are going to come into play, because it's going to be kind of noisy, obviously. Some people like the noise of coffee shops. I know sometimes I'll take off my headphones and just work with the noise. I don't mind, but I usually like to have headphones on if I'm going to be working there for a while. The other thing, and the hardest thing for me especially, is get ready for different time zones. So when I went to Minneapolis, that was only an hour off. But even then I had to kind of like go into my head and be like, okay, so my meeting is at this time, not this time. I had to prepare for that a little bit. And I have like decent experience with time zones. And that was still kind of it threw me off a couple times where I looked at my watch and I'm like, oh shoot, it's in 10 minutes, not in an hour and 10 minutes and stuff like that. When you're going to countries that are 10-hour differences, like a 10-hour change, that's a big adjustment. So you're going away, your clients still need your help. Like your clients still need to call you, you still need to have meetings, stuff like that. A 10-hour change means that it's going to be daytime there, nighttime where you are. Nighttime there, daytime where you are. And you have to adjust to that. So it's a very strange adjustment, and it's something that you have to kind of prepare for, because think about it, your normal working hours are during the day, so 8 to 5. That's their evening, so they might not be able to have meetings with you because it's not their working hours. So what you'll have to do is usually work your normal hours and then schedule your meetings for the evening, so like after 10 o'clock or after 9 o'clock. And before bed, make sure you sit down and have a meeting. And it's usually, a fairly interactive meeting, so you have to be awake for it. And it changes the day. And I think it's definitely adaptable. Like I definitely adapted to it. I've done it. I did it for, I think, a month and a half one time, where I would work my normal day from anywhere between 8 to 4 or something like that. And then have another hour or 2-hour meeting in the evening. And the positive here is that after the meeting, you kind of go to bed. That's how I worked it out, and it worked out for me, and it was okay. And then in the morning when you wake up, you digest the meeting and you do everything that you move on with all the bullet points that you got from the meeting, and you have a whole day to kind of tackle that, and then you have another meeting to discuss what you've done and move on to the next day. So that's if you have stand-ups, like daily stand-ups with the team, that's kind of how you would handle it, and it's not too bad. If you have a meeting that requires immediate action, however, so if you have a meeting about like a potential serious, severe issue and it's at 10 o'clock at night and you have to solve it before you go to bed, that's another serious problem, obviously, because you're going to be up till like 2, 3 a.m. if it's a serious problem, and then you have to wake up early and continue doing your regular work. That's where you have to kind of appeal to the client and ask them if it's okay if they can accommodate your time difference. And so in that case, if they can, they would have a meeting with you in their evening, so maybe like 7 or 8 o'clock at their time, PM, and you would be able to then handle everything that they need with immediate action right after their meeting. And by the time they wake up the next day, everything would be solved for them, kind of thing, which is another positive of having 2 different time zones. So take the positives wherever you can get them, because it definitely kind of gets hectic sometimes. It's not a very easy thing to adjust to, but it's not impossible. That's a thing. It's definitely doable. So don't be afraid to travel. Don't be afraid to, go out there and do your work in different places. If you have to go, see family across the country or go see family somewhere else, you can still definitely get your job done if you're a contractor and or if your company can accommodate those hours while you're not in office. Talk to your clients, talk to your boss, stuff like that. It's all definitely doable. Just explain how you're going to accomplish the goal, and I'm sure that they can accommodate. That's kind of what I've realized while I've been doing this. With that, I think I'm going to move on to the travel kit that I currently use. Unless, Matt, you have any questions, comments?
I have a question, which I think might spark a bit of a conversation. So I'll ask it now, and then you can either do it before or after the travel kit. So one of the things that you said right at the beginning was I don't know whether you said you're not a fan of, but you just don't like kind of unplug. Like some people will like completely like shut off their email notifications. They won't check stuff. They won't blah, blah, blah. Do you think though that it would be, and not from a medical perspective because we're not doctors, but do you think from just your own experience, do you think it's unhealthy to not be able to, or even to not want to disconnect in that way? Because like, I would say that when you do disconnect, because I have had to disconnect before. I've gone to Cuba before, and they have just terrible reception there and everything else, right? So what it is there is I was kind of anxiously checking the phone all the time like normal, but then I just got used to the fact that I wasn't checking the phone, and then I just didn't. And then when I came back, then I checked it, and it actually took me a while to get back to checking the phone again, if that makes sense. So it was a big break in the routine of constantly checking the phone, slowly not checking the phone, then back to checking the phone. Do you not think that transition, that break is healthy? Like, do you never want to do that? Or or is it more of a passion thing? Like you're passionate about you doing your work, so you want to do, like what is your take on that, I guess, is my question.
So yeah, it's a good question because it is kind of I guess a controversial thing for me to say that I don't disconnect, because a lot of people would be like, well, you have to disconnect to recharge and stuff like that. And I don't disagree with that notion, but for me, when I mean like I just check my email, make sure there's no emergency, and then I move on with my life, kind of thing. And that gives me peace of mind, and it makes me more relaxed. Like once it's like 6 o'clock at night, right? Like, and we're going out to party, or we're having a few drinks, we're by the campfire, whatever. I won't be checking my phone, obviously. During work hours, though, if we're doing something that allows me to check my phone, like I'm not going to go out of my way and like if I'm in the middle of the lake, like swim back and then like start checking my phone. I'm not going to do that. But if I'm around my phone, I like to check it to make sure that there's no emergencies. Again, like I don't like to leave it for a very long time and then come back and have a potential to there be like some sort of crazy thing. So it's kind of an anti-anxiety thing for me. Like I don't want there to be I don't want to leave someone hanging for a long time and stuff like that. Like I won't answer every email that I get, but if there's something that I can answer really quick with like a couple of words, I will answer that. I don't mind that. That doesn't bother me. Like I'm still relaxing. I'm still okay. If it's something more intensive, again, I have an out of office notification. They'll know that I'm out of office. So it's kind of like I do what I want to do, and I think that's where my disconnecting happens, instead of like when I'm in work hours where I have to, check every single email and respond to every single email, even if I don't want to. So I don't mind that. And again, it is kind of a passion thing for me because we have a small business. If I was working for a different company, it might be a completely different thing. Like, because you're not, we're working for ourselves here, Matt and I. So we are investing. Any time that we invest is money that we get back, is better client experience that they receive, and so on and so forth. So it's kind of like I don't know if it's a necessary thing, but in my eyes, it's kind of necessary for us to have to check sometimes. And obviously, like you said, with Cuba, sorry, I had to take a drink there. With Cuba, there's no choice for you. Like, you can't check there.
Yeah.
So you have to disconnect, and you tell everyone you have to disconnect, and you disconnect, and that's fine. But when you can, I usually check.
Well, that's interesting that you mentioned that, because I was actually going to say that. So, like, right now I'm kind of doing some family stuff, which I'm not going to get into, but, like, I'm kind of, like, we're recording this episode is a prime example. We are, like, I was answering some people yesterday for stuff like that. Like, I'm still sort of there. Like, I'm not, like, sitting at my desk, for the next few days, but I'm going to be, like, checking emails and that type of thing. But the thing that actually made me think of this was, you're right about the anxiety about things building up when you're gone, but for some reason, me telling people that I'm going to be disconnecting, like you were saying, before you leave, if you're leaving to a place that doesn't have connection, just to tell everyone, hey guys, I'm leaving at this time, whatever, contact me before this if you need help with anything, but I can't help you between these dates. That, like, completely removes my anxiety strangely. And I wonder if it's more so, like, I don't know whether you get more anxious about doing the work itself, or, like, I get more anxious about, I think, the people being left hanging. But if I tell them a few days before and they don't get back to me and then they panic in the middle of my vacation, I don't care. I don't know whether that's bad to say, but, like, you know what I'm trying to say?
I don't think it's bad to say, because you're like, I think my way is probably the more, like I said, the more controversial way.
Sure.
That might be the bad way to handle it, because again, if you never disconnect, you might get burnt out. But, like, with my logic is that I am disconnecting because I'm not forcing myself to do anything. Like, none of the stuff that I'm answering is something that I don't want to answer. It's usually stuff that I'm more than happy to answer a question here. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not doing anything that I don't want to do during a vacation, is what I'm trying to say. Because I don't mind a lot of the communication that I have with clients. I don't mind that. Like, I like that communication. A lot of the little things that I do on a daily basis for work, I don't mind that. If I have to do that on a vacation, that doesn't bother me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I was actually kind of thinking that, and maybe it's just different types of people, but even if I'm not on a vacation, but, like, let's say I go out someplace. So, like, I've worked my hours, whatever, and I go out in the evening. If I'm not one of those people that will oftentimes pull out my phone and just sit there and text. if that makes sense. You know how some people will be at the dinner table or like whatever, or at the event, and then they'll just like kind of suddenly pull out their phone and the whole thing gets silent. When that happens, I kind of do that in response to everyone doing that. And if I'm doing that, it's usually because I am planning something very specific, like something needs to be done now kind of thing, or something very interesting came in. But I very strangely, those are like micro disconnects, it's like for like an hour or two, right? But I very strangely don't really check my phone. Like when I record the other, like I have another podcast as well, like when I record that, you know, we go to the studio and it's like kind of like an ordeal. I don't really check my phone that much that night, even. So I don't know whether it's just different phone etiquette, different like types of working thing. I don't know. It might be because I usually get fired up really fast. And so I need to, you know what I mean? Because I'll just like get really fired up and then I'll be fine again. So maybe I'm just like, okay, I need to have a point in which I won't get fired up really fast because I'm going to get fired up tomorrow probably kind of thing. So maybe that's it. I don't know, but it's interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
It's interesting to hear all the different ways. And it actually be kind of interesting to hear from the listeners as well about how they deal with it, because some people, I remember reading a couple articles in the past that some people just love to just travel and work. Like they specifically go like, I'm going to work in or on this beach. I don't know if you've read any of those, but some people will be like, I'm maybe a small to medium business owner. I'm going to go work on this beach.
Well, I would consider myself one of those people.
Okay.
That's the thing. Like I don't mind traveling and working. That's why we're doing this episode right now,
right?
Because I've done it considerable amounts of like a few years now, right? Like 3 or 4 years where I've gone for multiple months every year, and I've worked on the go in different countries and stuff like that. And I do like it. I like the different environments. I like that. There's obviously some negatives, and the biggest negative, and this very much ties into the episode, is you're losing your home setup. So when you travel, I have 3 screens here at home.
Yeah.
When I travel, I have 1 screen. Like I mentioned that a little bit, but that is a huge detrimental to my efficiency, right?
Like your home base is gone.
Exactly, my home base is gone, which is a problem. But I think what outweighs it is the different environments allow me, and this is again a preference thing, to be more efficient. Because I know I only have a couple hours here, 3 hours here, 4 hours here. So I can really like nail down and just sit there and get my work done. And for me, then again, every person will have a different experience with this, I think. And you could try it out for yourselves out there. But I'm more productive if I have a change of scenery every once in a while. So that's why I go to coffee shops. You know what I mean? Like, that's why I go to different places. Like I'll go to the botanical gardens here in town. I'll go to coffee shops. I'll do what I need to do to get stuff done, because sitting, even with my awesome setup, I will get burnt out just sitting in my room all day and coding from one spot for like even a week or 2 straight, if that makes sense.
Let me ask you this then, actually, a follow-up question to that. So you're saying that because you kind of have limited time, like maybe an hour in this coffee shop, 2 hours here, whatever, you're kind of more efficient. But do you find yourself doing the same type of work? So a prime example would be, I would say that I'm very, very efficient when I'm out and about, because I don't really go to coffee shops that much to work. I like to just kind of be at my home desk. However, we've done it, for example, and stuff like that. And I've done it myself a couple times. And what I find is I'm very efficient at doing my communication, and I'm very efficient at getting things started. Anything communicative, like even quoting things, stuff like that, I'm very, very efficient at when I'm at those places. But I find that if I need to like sit down and just do something, like even something that I find natural now, like CSS, I can't do that more technical stuff when I'm in public like that, or in a different environment. Like, I mean, I'm sure I could do it at somebody else's desk. I don't know whether it's because it's noisy or what it is, but I just like, do you find yourself doing different work and you're leaving? Because what I would normally do is I'll go out, do something, and I say, okay, I did this, and this, and I left this, and this for home. Do you find yourself doing that, or do you just do anything and everything?
So you know, that's an extremely good point. I go out to coffee shops around here to do writing, for the most part.
Okay.
So my writing while in public places is much better than my writing at home. I don't know what it is, but it's like 100% of the time I can write probably 10 times as fast in a coffee shop than I can at home.
Okay.
Which is weird. But that's not saying, like, again, I've had to do month-long traveling trips where I had to work So I had to adapt and be able to do all the technical stuff as well. But for sure, like you're saying, my most efficient thing while I'm in a coffee shop is writing. Whereas everything else might take a little bit of a knock, but I have been getting better at it.
Okay, interesting. Okay, so it might be. That's interesting. It's like now
I think it's one of those things where you just have to do it for a while.
Yeah.
Like if you had no choice, you would get your CSS done.
Oh, of course. Like if it was like a panic, there's a whole different dynamic. It's almost like, I guess, the human brain doing it, where when there's like a panic or a set amount of urgency, you will just go ham and get it done. Perseverance is essentially it. But that's super interesting to me. I wonder if my writing, because I know I did communicative, but I've never done like. I wonder if I'd be able to like really bang out articles, because I have a lot of like article ideas.
You should try it. Just go to like a Tim Hortons or a Starbucks or whatever is near you, and just sit down and try to write something. Because honestly, it's night and day for me. Like I can barely write at home. Like I can write and I can usually nail something out, but it's not as good. I've noticed my quality is also worse.
Okay, interesting.
Which is weird. But yeah, to each their own. Obviously, everyone's different in that kind of way, but it's definitely a different take on it and a different mindset. So it's a good thing you brought it up. With that, though, I'm going to move on to my travel kit. And I'll go through this quickly because we've talked about a lot of these things before, and I don't really have too much. Like I said, I like to travel light. So again, main laptop is that 2013 15-inch MacBook Pro with a charger. Obviously, that's what I carry. I have my 2 pairs of headphones. One is the wireless Xiaomi AirDots. They're like pretty awesome, fairly cheap wireless headphones. They're not on the level of AirPods for price, but I think in terms of sound quality and features, they're definitely up there. The other thing I carry is a wired pair of headphones because, like Matt would say, I have that old disgusting port. Disgusting port. Yeah, it's terrible on my phone. And I like to have that just in case, with any Bluetooth device, it could break or the battery could run out. So I want to have something that I can at least use. And again, they're Xiaomi pistons. I'm not a Xiaomi spokesperson here, but I have used a lot of their stuff, and price to performance wise, if you import from China, they are hella good value. That's all I'll have to say about that. I have a 2018 iPad, just a regular iPad. I use that for work. I do a lot of testing on the iPad because a lot of the apps that we create are for exactly that iPad kind of thing. So it's a great testing device. I kind of have to carry it. And because I have to carry it, I've installed an app called Duet, which allows me to use it as a secondary screen. So now I have 2 screens for my laptop. And I know with the new macOS version, Catalina, it'll come native into the system. So I probably won't have to use that app anymore. But while I don't have that because it's not the fall yet, I use this separate app and it works just as well, I think. The other thing I carry is a Kindle e-reader just for reading books. I do read a few development books here and there or business books, stuff like that. So it's part of my pack. I read other books, obviously. Like I do read quite a bit, and especially while I travel, that's kind of one thing I do to relax on a plane. I'm not a huge fan of planes, by the way. I mean, I've been on them so many times, and I still kind of, I don't know if I get nervous. I hate being cramped in that seat for so long. Even if it's for like an hour and a half, I'm just like, this kind of sucks. You're just sitting here
and you have less of a cramping problem because I'm a rather large man.
Yeah,
and so
exactly.
I'm really cramped. to be blunt.
Yeah, exactly. Like I do not enjoy being cramped, and I don't think you would enjoy it either on a plane. That's for sure. The other thing is I carry is a power bar. It has a couple like outlet prongs and 3 USB ports on it, and it has an extension cord to it. So that's super useful for whenever you're at a coffee shop and you need to power up. If the outlet's not right beside you, you can still connect to it. If you're at a hotel and you want to charge all your devices, you can just push that in, put all your USB ports, USB things in there, and you're good to go. I highly recommend carrying a power bar. That's a little lesser known thing to carry while you're traveling. And I have a small one. It's like a little cube. Don't carry one of those big ones like a surge protector. You don't need that. But a nice small one with a couple prongs, a couple outlets, 2 or 3, and USB ports is a huge plus. I highly recommend it. And then I carry kind of one USB-C, one micro USB, and one lightning cable. I know they sell those that have like all three on one, but I don't have one of those, and I'm not willing to spend the money on it because I have all the cables that I possibly need. So that's what I carry. A water bottle. Water bottle is pretty big. When you're going on a plane, you can't carry a like actual liquid water with you across security. But what you can do is you can carry an empty water bottle and then fill it up at the water fountains, and you don't have to buy their $10 waters at the airport. So it's another travel tip. And I found with drinking more water while you're traveling, you don't get that weird stomach feeling that you get on a plane. Like sometimes I'll have like a really, I don't know, gassy stomach, and like it just hurts while I'm flying. If I drink more water, that usually goes away. So it's another thing. Another thing I carry is actually just a portable USB key. I think it's like 16 or 32 gigs. Just like I said before, just in case I have to quickly transfer files or something like that. Again, I haven't used that probably in the last like 2 or 3 trips that I've been on. So that might even leave my pack because mostly everything is done online. I can send anyone a file that I want to. There's on Mac devices, there's I think AirDrop it's called. That's really convenient, especially from my iPad to my MacBook. I can do AirDrop, no problem. And the last thing here is a wireless mouse. And I like the touchpad on the MacBook, but when I have to sit down and do some serious work, I still use a mouse. So with that being said, that's really all I need to carry with me in terms of tech. Obviously, I have my clothes and all that crap. But other than that, that's it. That's all I carry. I don't have anything extra. That's all you really need. You don't need to carry 10 pairs of headphones. Like I've seen some people carry like 4 or 5 different headphones, which is crazy to me. I don't know why. The other thing I do carry is a battery, an external battery. Just one. It's a small 10,000 milliamp hour one. Like it's a lot of battery power, but it's kind of in pretty compact shape. So I have that charged and ready to go if I need it. I have been finding that most flights that I've been on have outlets, so I haven't been needing it. But you don't know where you're going to end up. You don't know what kind of power the hotel is going to have. You don't know if you're going to be traveling on a bus for like 10 hours at some point. So it's good to have at least one of those. With that being said, I think that's it for my travel tips and the travel kit. I'll pass it off to Matt for web news, or if he has any other comments on this stuff.
Well, I was just wondering, and I assume it is, all that stuff is in your carry-on? That's not your checked luggage?
Yeah, I don't check anything like that in my checked luggage.
Okay.
The only thing I'll check sometimes is like an HDMI cable or something.
I mean, yeah, you just wrap it in a shirt.
Yeah,
and then,
exactly.
Yeah, because last couple times I've had luggage come out, it's been one time that had a bunch of ice on it, and the other time it was just soaked. So I was like, well, good thing I don't have like I don't know why I don't know why I would have a TV in there, but I was about to say a good thing I don't have a TV in there or something else electronic. Bring that in your travel kit. There's Matt's travel kit. Just bring a TV in your
50-inch TV. Yeah.
No, 30-inch. We're going all the way. We're
fair.
paying.
We're paying. Sorry, that was 50-inch was too big, but 30-inch that's totally logical.
But anyway, okay. So this week's web news is going to be all about wearables, more specifically about Wear OS. So Mike and I have very similar watches. I think you have the Gen 3 Fossil, and I have the Gen 4 Fossil. Now, I don't remember exactly which Fossil it is. Mine has like the little points on the ridges. It's the one with the 3 buttons.
The Explorist
or something. Explorist Q or something like that. But regardless of which, my beef is not with the hardware. My beef is with the Wear OS, which is Google's platform for smartwatches, essentially. So on this watch, and it's been across a couple of other watches, so it's been on Mike's, and I've seen it on a couple other watches, I have a lot of random Google Assistant activations. I find the microphone for speech to text takes forever. I find the messages, so when I receive like a text message and I click in, it's slow. Like I'll click in and be like, I would like to, like, you have to click into the message and then say reply, and then say I want to click on the microphone. Like, it's slow, is what I'm saying. It's a slow process from a UX perspective. It reacts slow because the microphone doesn't turn on itself all the time. I have multiple times where I'll be trying to read something, and then suddenly the screen becomes unresponsive, and I just can't use the screen anymore because it's loading something. So I just have to like wait for like 10 minutes, and all of a sudden the screen starts working again, or I can force restart it. Like, what I'm getting at here is that I feel like despite the fact that there have been updates like the cards and other things, Wear OS is being neglected. And what's sad about that is the fact that so Samsung makes their own smartwatches, right? The Galaxy smartwatch lineup. And they don't even use Wear OS. They use Tizen or Tizen or whatever it's called, because it's literally just better from what I hear from people. It's more money, but it is, again, just better. And that can also be seen on the Apple side of things with the Apple Watch, where the Apple Watch is actually getting a bunch of updates, a bunch of support, everybody from the people who use it for sport reasons, just for notifications, just to whatever. Because I've had several times where, a bunch of my friends, they all use iPhones, and what I have is like, I'll be trying to answer somebody on my watch, and all of a sudden I'll just stop, and they're like, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, my watch is frozen. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, yeah, it's pretty standard. Like, it just, like, what I'm getting at here is that this watch, Wear OS, in my opinion, from my experience, and I've had an Asus ZenWatch 2 in the past, and I have this thing, is that Wear OS is not optimized. It seems forgotten, and no one seems to care about it for whatever reason. And with that being said, the experience from a UX perspective is like really bad, in my opinion. I don't know if you get the same impression, Mike, as that. But what my question is what does Google need to do to refresh Wear OS? Should they abandon ship and allow other things like TicWatch, and actually TicWatch might use Wear OS now. So like, let's just,
it does.
Okay, so let's say the Samsung stuff. So should they just allow like the Android market for smartwatches be dominated by Samsung? Should they allow like somebody else come in, someone similar to like, let's say Pebble, like what Pebble used to be? Like maybe should they allow someone else in there? And just should Google be hands off? Like what's your opinion on the state of Wear OS, and what would you like to see from it to make it like an Apple Watch contender?
Okay. So I have a lot to say on this topic. Wear OS, I don't think there's a problem with Wear OS, in my opinion. I don't think Wear OS is the issue. So I think usability wise, like the actual functions when they work, and I have the same problems that you do. I'm not saying that I don't have those problems. Those problems, the exact same ones that you said, happen to me. Not super often, but often enough to annoy me. When they work, when everything works, I think it works just fine when I need it to. So I think I like all the functionality of it, if that makes sense.
Yes, yeah, definitely. Okay.
If you agree with that. So where Wear OS or where Google watches are falling behind is the processing power. So this processor in our watches, even though your watch is newer than mine, it's the same processor, right? It's I think 7 years old, the processor.
Holy crap.
Yeah, 7 or 8 years old. Like it's on the level of like the S4 or something like that. Or the S3. S3 or S4. It might be the S3 even. Okay. So that's the technology that they're using.
That's pretty bad
for it. Yeah. So why the Apple Watch are so much better is because it has performance level, like the processor that it has is more power efficient and has performance that are like 20 times better efficient, like just period. Samsung is about 10 or 15 times better. Again, they're using a different processor.
Like literally 10 or 15 times better. Like the
I'm not exaggerating here. I'm not exaggerating.
Okay.
So that is, in my opinion, the only thing holding up Wear OS. Now there was an announcement that was made a few months ago that said that they are putting a new watch processor out in the next year that will be on the same level as probably the Samsung one.
Okay, that's interesting.
Okay.
Who's doing that? Snapdragon,
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because Samsung is allowed to use their own processors. That's why they're allowed. They were able to get more efficiency and better power. Like the Samsung watches, the watch operating system is worse than Wear OS in my opinion.
Okay,
I've played around with it. I don't like it. I don't like the functionality of it. But how smooth it is it's night and day. Like you can't compare them.
Yeah, that's more what I was comparing. Like I've never used it.
Yeah,
but seeing it be used, it looks really nice.
Exactly, and the battery life. Like I mean, on the Samsung watches, you can get like 3 days, no problem.
Oh wow, okay.
And it's literally all because processor. So once that is solved, and I think it will be solved in the coming year, with Fossil's resurgence and the fact that Google bought, I think, half the Fossil staff. I don't know if you knew about that.
Something about the wearable division, I remember, yeah.
Google bought like half the wearable division of Fossil, so they're probably working on their own watch. And there was rumors of Google working on a watch that was supposed to be launched at the last I/O, which it was never launched. I'm guessing because they made it, put the old processor in there. I'm like, this is not usable.
Yeah, honestly.
So we can't, like, I'm not launching it. We're not launching something that's not usable. So once this new processor launches, once Google launches a smartwatch, I don't think they have to change much in Wear OS. I think the progress that they made is already good, like functionality wise. Now, I don't use the smartwatches for more than checking my notifications. I don't typically answer on them unless it's one of those quick answer things.
You're right.
Like one of the things that they're sort of like yes, no, or that sounds good, whatever. Like they give you suggestions. I don't answer on it. I don't call anyone on it. I only check it for steps, check it for the time, and the date, like that, and the weather, which is all on like the single watch face. So I don't have too many issues with it as it currently is.
Right.
I like this watch. The Fossil watches are great. I'd still recommend, even as long as you keep your expectations low, like you're not going to be, playing Doom on this thing or whatever. I don't know what else. Like you're not going to have a great time if you're going to go into it thinking that I'm going to use the watch to replace my phone, or I'm going to use the watch a lot to message people, like you do, right? Like you would prefer to use the watch to message people sometimes.
Oh yeah, like the phone will be charging, or if I just decide to do it, I'll be like, why can't I just talk? Because I like to talk to my phone too. I just like the speech to the speech to text is a lot faster now, and so it's like a similar accuracy level, at least in my experience, when the microphone actually activates. And so I would love to do that. I'd also love to be able to use the Google Assistant more reliably without it having just constantly just activating, and then I get like a notification saying that it didn't hear me or something, and I'm like, I didn't activate you.
So my suggestion is for people out there that want a smartwatch, don't want to pay a lot of money, just want to kind of have a fancy watch that tells the time and gives you notifications and counts your steps, go for it. Get a Fossil watch. The new Fossil watch just came out actually. It looks pretty good. It's fine. Again, it doesn't have that new processor in it that I was talking about.
Right.
So you're not going to be doing much with it consistently. If you want to do more, wait.
Or get a Samsung.
I don't know when. Or get a Samsung, yes. Or get a Samsung.
Or buy an iPhone
in my
and
opinion,
an Apple Watch.
Yeah, an Apple. Well, I mean, the Apple Watch has leagues ahead. Like, you can't... It's honestly... It's almost not comparable at this point. The only thing I'll say is I use active, like, always on display.
Okay.
Apple Watch doesn't have that.
Right.
So, and that pisses me off.
I used to use that, but it started killing my battery super fast. Like, I would find that it would, act appropriate where I'd charge it every night kind of thing. I don't know whether you charge yours every night, but like I would have like my always on display. But what I found was, sometimes like with all Android devices, you'll have like an app just run away with your battery. I found that for whatever reason with the always on display, I don't know whether it was like keeping something in the foreground or whatever, but I found that it was doing that like quite often, like way more often than it should have been doing it. And so I had to turn off the always on. For me,
do you use the default Fossil watch face?
Yeah, I just left it.
Yeah, so for me, and I do too. The only time that my watch runs out of battery is if I accidentally don't plug in the charger all the way.
Yeah, that's a pain in the ass. The charger is a pain.
The charging on these Fossil watches isn't the greatest.
Did you have to clean yours? I had rust on the back of mine. I had to clean mine.
No, I haven't had that
yet. Because what it was, and I'm assuming here, but what it was is, so on the back of this watch, there's like the two rings where it's like the two pins will connect. But there's like the back, there's like the back that's like that black plastic that holds it all together. I believe that has a metal ridge that's what rusted on mine. So it wasn't.
Yeah, you know what? You're not the only one.
You're not but I just scraped it off and it went away, like whatever. But
yeah. But I had heard of that happening on your particular model. Mine model, I don't think has that. Your model has that. Your model also has the issue where the back would just fall off.
That's a pain in the ass.
But it was only one batch.
Okay, yeah. Like I think, like I really like this watch. Like I think it looks nice.
Yeah.
I like it for the time. I usually have it on. Like for the most part, it's just the fact that like it's so unreliable in terms of like the hardware is fine, screen's great, everything. So Fossil themselves did a great job, in my opinion. Which is why like I'm not dwelling on the fact that it's a Fossil watch. What I'm dwelling on the fact is like Wear OS is a damn mess. Like Wear OS 2.0 that released a while ago was a big leap and bound forward. You could click on the notifications, you could reply and everything else, but then it just kind of fell stagnant. I'm not using cards on this thing. I'm not doing anything because every single time I go use it, 90% of the time there's some sort of problem. My screen freezes, like my crown stops working. It tries to activate the assistant. It won't work. Like it just like it's all frozen up. Like it just keeps messing up. And it doesn't most people would just say wipe it and redo it. Well, I've done that, and it does work great for like a week, and then it starts doing it again. But you're right. Like, I would say you're definitely right about the processor. I never really thought of it because it doesn't get hot, so I didn't really think of it. But you're right. These weird things is like stuff getting stuck in the threads and such, like the technical threads for those that like aren't aware of hardware stuff like that. But like it's literally getting like it's stuff getting, one process just taking 100% of the CPU. Like, I need to check the time really quick, and your phone's dead, or your watch is dead. Like, I've actually had it where I've held my watch up to my face, because I don't have the always on anymore, so it, like, does the gesture, and it's shown me the wrong time for, like, 20 or 30 seconds, because it was trying to, like, sync the time, I guess. And so I've, like, gotten the wrong time before. I've been like, oh, Jesus. Like, I'm late, or like, oh, Jesus, it's not that late. And then I go look at another clock, and I'm like, oh my God, I am late now. Like,
so it can't even do the one thing that it needs to do.
But it's because of, like, I think, whether it's an app I have installed or what it is, but the fact of the matter is it's not, like, it can't keep up, right? It's the equivalent of, like, I know there's a difference, obviously, between CPUs and hard drives, but it's literally like with my older laptop where we're putting, like, the mechanical drive was such a detriment, and literally an SSD was an actual miracle drug for it. 40 minutes, that's not an exaggeration, to boot, down to about 14 seconds.
Yeah. Crazy. That's why, okay, and on that point quickly, Windows 10, when it detects a mechanical drive, should not let you install it.
Or, in my opinion, what it should do is it should install a lesser service. Stop trying to sync crap. Stop trying to check my notifications or do whatever. Stop doing location services. You're accessing the drive too much. Stop those processes. Like, what's wrong with you guys? Superfetch, whatever. Because that's all I ever heard was like, oh, use Superfetch, do this. And people were freaking out because, like, they were saying, like, my drive's super slow, like, my computer's super slow now, like, I don't know what the heck's going on. And it was always the disk. It was never the CPU. It was never the RAM. It was always this. And what would happen is you would go into the services and you would disable certain things that people would suggest, like, oh, disable Superfetch, disable this, disable that. And it would work sometimes. It'd just be like, it'd all of a sudden be amazing. Your computer would work fine. It'd be like super fast, just like an SSD, no problems. You boot it up again the next time, and it's freaking doing it again because some other thing is trying to fire itself up, checking maps or whatever the hell else it's checking. It's too much. It's too much on it. Like, that's a bottleneck, and clearly on these watches, it's the CPU that's the bottleneck.
Yep. So yeah, and like you said earlier, where you just don't use the tiles. I don't use 90% of the functionality of the watch because I know that if I were to use it and I really needed it, it's not going to work.
And that sucks. Like, I would love to just be able to quickly, like I mentioned in this episode, where I'm not a person that if I'm at an event will constantly check their phone unless, like, the people around me doing it, then I'm just like, oh, okay, I guess I'm checking my phone, or unless there's other circumstance there. But the point of the matter is, I'm not like constantly checking my phone like some people do, or like vlogging or something. So I would like to have my phone in my pocket, and I would like to just be able to, like, look at my watch and be like, okay, and just, like, talk into it, like, oh, I'll be there in 10 minutes, or like, oh, I'm in this place right now, can't talk, or whatever.
So, yes. And I do this, and essentially we can't do that. But one thing I want to ask you, and I want to know if you've run into this issue.
Okay.
The watch is supposed to be the thing that, like, prevents you from looking at your phone in a meeting or when you're, like, in a one-to-one session, you know what I mean? Like, so you don't have to be rude and pull out your phone in front of someone to check on an emergency email that you're waiting on.
Yeah.
Something like that, right? That's what the watch is supposed to
do.
Yeah. What I've had, and this is with the older generation usually, is if I'm talking to the older generation and we're having a conversation and my watch buzzes and I check it, they think that I want to end the conversation.
Yes,
because
100%.
It's like I'm looking at the time.
Yeah.
Have you noticed
100%.
that? 100%. Yeah.
I'll get that where they're
that's
like...
something that I've consciously stopped doing now. Because I don't want... Because I literally had people be like, oh, do you need to go somewhere? Like, are we ending the conversation? I've literally had that happen like 2 or 3 times.
Oh, yeah.
Now.
Yep.
I was like, no. This is a smartwatch. Like, I have to explain myself. I'm like, this is a smartwatch. Defeats the whole purpose of it being subtle. And you know what I mean? Like, it's unfortunate, but that's happened a couple times. So now I've got to adjust where, like, my phone will vibrate, my watch will vibrate, and I won't look down if I'm in a conversation. So, I mean, I think that's correct. That's the etiquette. That's proper etiquette. If you're with a young, like if you and I are talking and you check your watch, or if I check my watch, we're not going to care.
No,
because we know what that is.
Or even check our phone. You know what I mean? It's more of a generational thing. But you're right, like because people used to only check their watch, especially take a long look at their watch if they were like concerned about being someplace.
Yes. So that's another thing. If people with smartwatches, just keep that in mind, because that definitely is something that people think.
What a weird UX to fight. Like I was just thinking, like, how do you? It's got to be generational because it's one of those things where the phone. Well, okay, this is now offbeat, but it's a UX conversation, so it's related to the show's topics, I guess. But one of the things I was just thinking of is a lot of the people that I know that are older in the older generation that do have cell phones. A lot of them are people who just don't really use it that much, right? They'll, pick up the phone when it rings, but they don't really text much or whatever, and they don't really check it when in a conversation. But there's actually a fair bit, and I would say about 50%, and I don't have a huge sample size, but I'd say 50% of the people I know that are from the older generation use the phone just like a millennial does. Maybe not with the pictures and the vlogging and such, but they're on that phone, and they're aware of like the fact that they're on that phone, and they're aware of the fact that they're on it during the middle of a conversation or in the middle of dinner, like whatever, right? Whatever you're doing. People, it's very, I don't know, it's strange that broke into that generation, because people always said like, oh, it's rude to be on your phone, and I think maybe me hearing that over and over again has made me that person that doesn't check all that often, like when I'm with other people. But that's so weird how I can't think of a way in terms of like a UX thing to explain to a person in the older generation that I'm actually on a smartwatch. Like, how do you obviously make it a smartwatch? You know what I'm trying to say? A smartwatch is supposed to be in the vein of a traditional analog or digital wristwatch. It is not supposed to like have big buttons on it that says I'm a smartwatch and big lights on it.
So I think that's where the Apple Watch kind of succeeded, in my opinion. Because as much as I don't like square watches,
right?
And I really hated the Apple Watch. Like, I think we had multiple conversations when it came out. Like, I really hated the Apple Watch when it first came out.
Right.
Because I was like, they could have done a nice circular watch. It could have looked really nice, like a real watch. Like, they could have used Apple's design team to create a really nice watch. Because they were already selling it for like $2,000 or $3,000 on like an expensive one.
Right.
So it was already an expensive watch. Obviously, you could get it for cheaper, but they had like ridiculously expensive ones. So I was pissed off at Apple for that because I thought that they could do better. But now that I think back on it, I think they were doing that consciously, being like, we want people to know that this is an Apple Watch, so it doesn't look like a regular watch. They want people to mistake it for some like common, even a Rolex or something like that.
Yeah.
They don't want people to mistake it for that. They want people to know, like, oh, that guy's wearing an Apple Watch. That's a status symbol.
Even the bands. Like, I understand you can get more traditional bands, but like you can almost always tell there's something up with someone's wristband, and then you're like, oh, it's an Apple Watch. You know what I'm trying to say? It's like,
like I can tell that someone's wearing an Apple Watch right away, where I can't tell if someone's wearing like it. I can usually tell if someone's wearing a smartwatch, but not all the time.
Right. Yeah.
Unless I look at them exactly. And then even then, I can't tell which smartwatch they're wearing if it's not an Apple Watch. So like, unless I know it's a Fossil watch, but it might be a Huawei. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of different options. So it's not. It doesn't go into my eyes. So, and our watches, like you said, are meant to look like, and I'm holding it up to the camera now, not that anyone can see, are meant to look like a real watch, like an old analog watch. And that's why it's harder to convey. But I think if we had an Apple Watch, it might be a little bit like, because the older generation now are kind of understanding of Apple Watches, in my eyes. Like, my dad has one.
Right.
Like a lot of, I see smartwatches all over the place at this point, and Apple Watch is definitely the dominant one of those. So I'm thinking that that's kind of their solution to that, is make it not look like an analog watch.
And then the generational thing will eventually set in, just like how some of the older folk will use their phone like a millennial, or as often as a millennial kind of thing.
Exactly.
That's really interesting. Like, I wonder if they consider stuff like that. Like, obviously Apple has, but I wonder if this type of conversation was had by the people who are trying to mask it like a real watch. And, you know, when they come up with the design and they're like, oh, let's make it so it's not obviously a smartwatch. I wonder if they have that conversation where it's like, what are the cons of that? You know, like, should we make this thing actually obvious? Because now that I think of it, and it's been a long time, so I could, you know, be mistaken, but I don't think I ever got a question from somebody about my Pebble. I never had anyone say, like, oh, you in a rush? People seem to realize that it was a smartwatch or something different. It had a weird shape.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I think people were like, oh, he's doing something. Like, what is that? At least, you know, if they didn't know what a smartwatch was.
So that's my theory.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. If Pebble was still around, I'd be using that. I wouldn't be using Wear OS regardless. But,
well, if you want to use a Pebble-like smartwatch, there is, I think it's called a Maze Fit, where they use an e-ink display, and it lasts for like 30 days.
Oh, seriously? Like, it's a modern...
You can check it out, and it's only like $90.
And it's a modern equivalent and upgraded and...
Yeah, it has all the modern services and stuff like that. Like, it doesn't have... Might not have... Like, it doesn't have apps, I don't think, but it has, like, you can answer messages and stuff.
Like, the microphone?
I'm not sure.
See, like, if it had a microphone, I'd... Like, I'm not joking now. Like, I'd seriously consider it, actually.
Okay. Well, I can send it to you. I can send it to you after this podcast, and if anyone wants to know about it, just join our Discord and ask me.
There you go, yeah. Just at you.
Yeah, just at me on the Discord.
All right, cool. Well, I don't really have anything else to add unless you do, Mike. I don't know how long this episode is because I lost my recording software. There it is, but... awesome. So I think I'm going to run the old conclusion then. So thank you for listening, and make sure you don't miss an episode by subscribing on the platform of your choice. You can follow us on the socials via @HTML all the things. That's on Facebook and Instagram. You can also follow us on Twitter via @HTML everything. We are on Medium and we're on GitHub. And remember, we're also on Patreon. That's patreon.com/HTML all the things. Check out the tiers and give that a go. And with that said, many thanks to our $3 tier patrons. Sean from Rabbitworks JavaScript. You can find him at youtube.com/rabbitworks JavaScript, and works is spelt WERKS. Also, Garrick from Local Path Computing and Web Design. You can find him at localpathcomputing.com. Craig, aka Cosworth, and last but not least, Ryan Gatchell from Blue Black Digital. You can find him at blueblackdigital.com. Feel free to leave a comment or a review on the platform that you are listening to this on, and we are signing off.